our instincts, which they keep mocking us over, I think are on the money. We're going to talk now about Christianity. Christianity. I'm putting that in quotation marks because
they don't want me on your screen, cause they know that I won't compromise. And I'm a prison risen king. Why your feelings get hurt? The truth set you free from the curse.
It has been on this podcast a recurring theme, right? I keep sensing, that these pastors are dangerous, right? I've covered extensively how even just amongst the Calvary Chapel, in particular, there's just way too much of a habit of establishing former pedophiles and drug traffickers as lead pastors of churches. Okay, I'm not saying that people can't find God. I'm just saying that my preference would be that they maybe not be provided with access to children, right? If you committed a crime against a child. This is a preference that I guess is not, or perhaps is in conflict with the beliefs and the preferences of Rob McCoy, who makes my skin crawl. We showed you that interview that he did with somebody who apparently went on a rampage. He actually went to prison for it, and he was just sort of laundering his reputation and then gave him access again to children. I feel like that is very wrong. I have also on this show been speaking a lot about these quote unquote Christian influencers. Something's not right. A lot of women who seem to know their Bibles for almost the implicit and explicit aim of socially engineering the population, right? Telling you, oh, it's right here in the Bible. Same with the pastors. God doesn't want you to follow Tucker Carlson on Instagram. Josh Hammer is amazing. Candace is possessed by a demon. You don't want to be possessed by a demon, so unfollow Tucker Carlson and unfollow Candace. And I promise there's no other motivations. Candace is just crazy, and you should listen to me. Similarly, there are so many conservative media companies who are run by former military intelligence, people that leave naval intelligence, people that lead the Mossad. Suddenly their aim is to speak about Judeo-Christian values. They find God after they leave the military. I'm not saying that that's impossible. I'm just saying that this is something that we have discussed a lot on this podcast. I have been suggesting to you all that faith has been infiltrated by the military, and people laughed. They laughed. Well, you guys didn't laugh, but oh, what do you mean by that? Well, you guys pull up a chair because it's about to get even more interesting. Fort Huachuca, as many of you in the military have informed me, is actually an intelligence base. Now, for those of you who are ignorant like me regarding the structure of the military, this is an important distinction to make in your mind, because when we think about military bases, at least me, maybe you can, you have the same mindset. I tend to think about where they're scrambling off the planes, off of an air base, if there's an attack, right? Oh, quickly jump into your planes and get into the air, or maybe get into the sea. It just requires an immediate response. But that is not what Fort Huachuca in Arizona is, okay? It is a hub for intelligence training. Civilians can be turned into intelligence assets on this base. They can take courses to join the intelligence community, okay? Just giving you one example of an email that I got, quote, just FYI, Fort Huachuca is where soldiers go for their MIT courses. That is Army Military Intelligence. Once a soldier has finished basic training, they go here for their advanced training for their actual job in Army Military Intelligence, end quote. Okay. Now, among the many emails that I received regarding what sort of intelligence courses take place, I was absolutely floored when a person who grew up and lives just outside of the base in Sierra Vista told me something. I'm going to recount the story to you, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit of this so that I protect their identity. Basically, their story begins in May of 2013. They are two recently baptized Christians. Like I said, they grew up in this area, Sierra Vista, and they decided they were going to pour their savings into starting a gym. Now, of course, because it's a gym that's located off base, they had a lot of clientele who happened to be associated with the base. And one such client was a woman that they met, a couple that they met that were on fire for the Lord, right? That couple made a sizable investment in their gym and became, quote unquote, founding members, okay? So the gym owners were drawn to this couple because they were so bold in their faith. They were like, I loved the bold proclamation of their faith, and we thought this is great. This is going to work. They accept money from them. So you can imagine that they were then completely surprised and shocked when this couple, over time, effectively staged something akin to a hostile takeover of their company, undermining them while pretending to be their friends, going behind their backs, propositioning other gym members. I'm going to be clear here. This is obviously allegedly. I'm going to say allegedly here. The couple almost lost everything in the process, and they had to start all over again. Now, what was once the fastest growing gym in Sierra Vista, suddenly they were forced to relocate and downsize their company entirely. So now it's 2015. They are in their new, smaller location of a gym. And I'm going to read this next portion of the email that I received verbatim. Again, allegedly, because he names an individual who I do not know. I've never heard of this individual, but I feel it is relevant because I'd like to learn more. The email continues, quote, "We were struggling, sometimes barely making rent, but still serving the community, including military students who came through for 4 to 6 month training courses." Okay, I want to stress that again. You've got all these students that are coming in and their training is lasting between 4 to 6 months. So they're signing up for this gym. Back into the quotation. One morning, I noticed a female military member lingering after class. She was visibly distressed, so I kept the gym open longer than usual to give her space to talk. We ended up conversing for about 45 minutes, and what she shared with me has stuck with me ever since. She said she, quote, "could not take it anymore." When I asked for details, she explained that her stress was coming from a class that she was taking on Fort Huachuca, taught by none other than Bruce Bevins. My ears perked up when I heard his name as I immediately remembered the incident with his wife. This young woman described Bruce as, quote, "the most evil man that she had ever met." She then revealed something that I wasn't expecting at all. The class's objective was to teach military personnel to infiltrate Christian groups and organizations through covert psychological operations. The training focused specifically on deceiving Christians. At the time, I didn't fully connect the dots. Our gym was and still is an openly Christian faith-based organization. But looking back now, I have to wonder if the infiltration and the destruction of our gym was actually a training exercise or field assignment. I also wonder if the distressed young soldier was sent to our gym on assignment from Bruce, but couldn't follow through with her objectives and instead chose to confide in me. There were other students who will corroborate this type of training. 2 military students, both named blank and blank, I'm redacting that, passed through our gym during this same period. They shared similar stories, but seemed much more advanced in their training. On one occasion, after I asked what was so funny in the back of my class, they privately shared that they had just returned from an overnight field training mission with very little sleep. Their objective had been to deceive civilians in Tucson, about an hour north of us. They practiced at local bars and public venues on unsuspecting people, telling lies, remembering those lies, and maintaining their false personas without, quote unquote, breaking character. They laughed about their conquests while working out at our gym. Now, I got the impression that their deception sometimes extended to sexual encounters with their targets. At the time, I found this disturbing, but I did not know what to make of it. Now, 12 years later, and watching the situation unfold with Charlie Kirk and learning that some of his most trusted people may have been trained operatives who infiltrated Turning Point USA, these memories suddenly seem significant. You mentioned previously that there was a strange military background connection among some of the people involved. I am now wondering if instructors like Bruce Bevins trained some of these individuals before they infiltrated Christian organizations like Turning Point USA. End quote. Now, I obviously cannot confirm just yet. I'm sure after the show, we're going to get a bunch of emails, the allegations against Bruce. Again, I have never heard of this individual. But what I can say to you is on a guttural level, I feel this is accurate. I do. It is what I have noticed. It's what I've been pointing to you all year. Many of these pastors are behaving like operatives, and many of these Christian influencers are behaving like operatives. And I keep telling you that all roads, including the Egyptian, here Israeli planes, lead to the front door of Turning Point USA faith. I kept saying there's something when faith suddenly infiltrated and something happened to this organization. And I feel this email is a big piece of the puzzle. Okay. So if you played a part in these exercises on Fort Huachuca base where you were learning instructions about how to be a good little Christian to infiltrate and potentially to overthrow a Christian organization, and maybe you're having some second thoughts about your soul and you'd like to speak to me about it off record, please email moretips@candaceowens.com. And I would also like you all to remember that we suddenly have been experiencing wall-to-wall panic ever since we mentioned Fort Huachuca. We saw this. It's crazy. I mean, the articles right now are unhinged. They are just doing fiction. The panic button was pressed when we mentioned Fort Huachuca.
They don't want me on your screen, cause they know that I won't compromise. And I'm a prison risen king. Why your feelings get hurt? The truth set you free from